The 49ers just got more wild news. Plus, later in the video, we're also going to be talking about quarterback controversy. That's all to come. But first, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Very much appreciate all of you for helping me get to 10,000 subscribers. It was a landmark I didn't know I'd ever get to, and I'm so humbled. Very much appreciate it. I have, out of the goodness of our hearts, my wife and I decided we want to do a giveaway. There's nothing in it for us. We wanted to give away a $50 gift card to Fanatics to up your gear game. All you have to do to get in on that is be a subscriber and like this video. I'm going to take all of the people who are subscribers that like this video, and we're going to do a big random wheel generator thing, and whoever wins is going to get a comment in tomorrow's video. I will pin the comment. You'll have 72 hours to reply to let me know that you saw it and that you are the winner of that Fanatics gift card, $50 to fanatics.com. Also, there's a bunch of little details for legality reasons that I've included in the description below. If you're entering the competition, you're agreeing to all of those. So you can look down there and read if you really care about all those little details. But it is as simple as being a subscriber and liking this video. So please do that. Now, there's a lot of Brock Purdy argumentation going on yet again this offseason. Who's surprised? Nobody's surprised. And we're going to get to a bunch of it today. But first, what I thought was pretty wild, like genuinely pretty wild when you think about it. When I give you the backstory, and you might be like not thinking this is wild for a second, but just for a moment, what Steve Young wanted Brock Purdy to do this season was what? Run the ball more, scramble more, get on his feet, get on his horse, and giddy up. Well, what did Brock Purdy have to do? Not because he wanted to necessarily, but because quarterback one, QB1, Brock Purdy, was put in a situation where he did not have his Christian McCaffrey. He had several games this season where he did not have Trent Williams. He had a rookie right guard that was unproven at the time, at the early parts of the season especially, right? He had a center who was really struggling. He had a right tackle that he wasn't probably thinking he could trust because of last year's postseason. And he had a left guard who was decent for a good portion of the season. So look, the bottom line is Brock Purdy had all the reasons in the world to be a little bit jumpy on his feet, and he was for the first part of the season especially. The 49ers ended up deciding to go for electing for more drop back game this season than previous seasons, especially with Brock Purdy as a quarterback, which is only 2 full seasons, but you get it. And because of that extra drop back game, Brock Purdy was under a little more pressure. Things were a little bit different, and he scrambled a little bit more than we wanted to. I feel like he had happy feet in those first couple games. I was at the Arizona Cardinals game with my wife, and I remember feeling it even there. Like there were just a couple times where it was like, hey, I love his scramble ability. He's like sneaky good at the scramble for sure, but I don't want to see it all the time. I want to see them, be creative in some of this. So all that being said, this just read this. This is crazy. Purdy's ability to avoid the negative play under pressure was stellar. Purdy finished 11th in non-running back rushing yardage this past season, which by itself, having like 50 yards the previous season, is pretty amazing. Despite having significantly fewer rushing attempts than most players ahead of him, he was among the league leaders in the NFL in scramble yardage, which tells you Purdy can create his own and, more importantly, flip those negative plays into first down. So he finished 11th despite having significantly fewer rushing attempts than most players ahead of him. And I said 50 yards. I don't actually remember the exact amount. I just know it was a lot less. In 2023, it was a lot more. In 2024, Purdy had finished 12th in sack percentage last season. That's not great. Among quarterbacks who threw at least 200 passes, but he was 5th in EPA loss per sack, telling you how well Purdy's sack avoidance was in 2024. So there's a top 5 quality for you. There are lots of things that we've talked about over the years. Well, years. It feels like years. My goodness. Over the last couple of seasons around Brock Purdy. And, any 49ers fan has had that conversation about Brock Purdy because people are asking about it. It's no surprise there. If you say you're a Brock Purdy fan, then you get some hate, as I have. And, of course, like really? Brock Purdy's your guy? Really? All of that kind of stuff. I think we know what we have in Brock Purdy. I think he's an incredible talent. We'll talk a little bit later in the video about some of the controversial stuff that was said today about that. But I think it's something worth mentioning and worth celebrating about Brock Purdy, that this is an element of his game that we really didn't see until the postseason in 2023. And in the postseason, it was incredibly powerful against Green Bay and Detroit. And those two games, Brock Purdy's feet made significant impacts, and those were games that were underrated by everybody. Then this season, he ended up going way beyond and running the ball significantly more. Some of it not because he necessarily wanted to. I don't think it was by design, but he managed to be very effective, being 5th in EPA loss per sack, which is pretty awesome. It's important to remember, and this is by Kyle Posey, by the way, who's writing here. Kyle Posey. It's important to remember that quarterbacks can run into their own pressure. Per PFF, only 4 quarterbacks were responsible for creating more pressure for themselves than Purdy was in 2024, and it's somewhat understandable. Brock played several games without a star running back, wide receiver, and left tackle. Trust was an issue. We didn't even talk about Brandon Aiyuk and the impact that had on him, because even when he was hitting BA in the first part of the season, BA was dropping a lot of those passes, and then when BA was gone, he didn't have his man beater. Still, Brock had a propensity to hold the ball and take unnecessary hits and sacks last year when the offensive line did hold up. According to PFF, Purdy had one of the worst sack rates versus actual dropbacks in the league last year. So that's an area to be improved. And when we're talking about improving quarterback Brock Purdy, some interesting stuff came out today. Starting with this from Dan Patrick, who was asked about if Brock Purdy's career from this point on will get better or worse. And I'm not I think this is an interesting from a discussion point of view. Okay. I'm not going to say any of us should be taking this conversation to the bank. Okay. Brock Purdy deserves to get paid. It's done. It's a done deal, you guys. He deserves to get paid. Does he deserve to get paid $35 million versus $60 million? Okay, fine. You want to have that conversation? You guys go ahead and have that conversation. I'm not having it today. But it is a fair question to wonder, with what the 49ers have done, will that improve Brock Purdy's game or hinder it? Because you have to at least be willing to look at the facts and say that things have changed for the quarterback in terms of weapons, in terms of system, and all that kind of stuff. Sure, there's at least a conversation. Here's what Dan Patrick said. Worse, they got rid of Deebo. I think they put themselves in salary cap heck with Brandon Aiyuk's contract. How much longer does Williams play? George Kittle, how long does he play? McCaffrey, how long does he play? And then you have to go out and replace those guys, and you have to have a quarterback making $55 million per year. Okay, some fair points from Dan Patrick. I want to respond to them. I disagree with Dan Patrick. I don't believe Brock Purdy has to get worse this season. If you have to choose better or worse, I believe there are plenty of reasons to believe he can improve this season. Okay? But okay, let's respond to what he said. Got rid of Deebo. Is that going to change Brock Purdy's play? Going into the season, I would have told you yes, because the connection in training camp between Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel was incredible, and it felt like Deebo was going to be his guy this year. It just felt that way. And then things looked different, didn't it? Now, it doesn't mean Deebo wasn't valuable. He still is. He's going to be valuable for the Washington Commanders. I think he's going to have a better season next year than he did this past year, this upcoming season. But the value for Deebo Samuel to Brock Purdy, I don't think that was really there. Let's keep going, though, okay? Because I think Brock Purdy really does benefit from man-beating players. Now, yes, offensively, he's pretty good against zone coverage, okay? So I get that. But when we started facing defenses who are going really heavy on man, Brock Purdy is an anticipation thrower. He's not the guy. He doesn't have the laser. So Brock Purdy's not going to be able to pinpoint every single pass in a really tight window like we've seen Josh Allen do, where Josh Allen can last minute just laser a ball into a really tight window. And Brock Purdy's too much anticipator for that. He doesn't have that kind of ability. That's not his strength. But we'll keep going. Salary cap because of Brandon Aiyuk's contract, I'm not nearly as worried about. Dan Patrick seems to be worried about it. I'm not. I think Brock Purdy's contract would be a bigger worry if we're talking about the salary cap hit. I mean, the players that are gone, in part thanks to we know from Jed York yesterday that in part that was because of Brock Purdy's upcoming contract. How much longer does Williams play? Okay, that's a fair point. So you do have to replace your left tackle at some point, and he's a Hall of Fame left tackle. That's a tricky thing to do. But We've seen what Brock Purdy has done when Colton McKivitz has had moments where he's been a revolving door. We've seen Brock Purdy's scramble ability. I'm impressed by it, so I'm not going to worry too much about that at this exact second. The 49ers still have time, probably one more year. So they're going to be bringing somebody in right now who's hopefully going to be that replacement. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, of course. George Kittle, how long does he play? Hopefully we get a couple more seasons out of George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey, I'm hoping we get a couple more seasons out of him as well. So I'm not quite at the point where I'm immediately saying Brock Purdy's getting worse because these guys are aging out. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have the best season this season he's had in a couple years. Well, okay. I'm sorry. That was a hot take. He's not going to have a 2023 season. I think he's going to have a great season. I really believe he's going to be primed and ready to go. I think having just enough to be in and get on the field and be there, but then not be able to play the full season and not have his body take a punishment of a full season. I think actually Christian McCaffrey has many reasons. He might, have some rust, let's say, but I think he's going to be really healthy this season. So I think there's positive there. Eric Crocker responded to this, by the way. And here's what he said. I think the question should have been, will Brock look worse from this point on? I think Brock looked the same in 24 as he always does. The outcome was different because in previous seasons he had several players be the best at their position in the NFL. It'll be very difficult to have that kind of supporting cast moving forward, so the perception of him may look worse, but I think he'll be the same guy. And that's a fair point from Eric Crocker. Fair point. So I appreciate the take there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this one. There was another thing that came out recently, today, from Chase Daniel doing the QB tiers. And it seems to be in a unanimous agreement that this is a really fair tier system. You guys know where I'm at on this. I don't like top 5, top 10, top 7, top 8, whatever. I just don't feel like that's super helpful. I like the tiered approach. I like saying there's a caliber of quarterback out there, and Brock Purdy's not that guy. And that's okay. I readily accept there are only 4 of those guys in the NFL right now. There they are. You got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. There's nobody else out there outside of those 4 guys that are at that level. And so if you're not one of those 4 teams, then you're one of those 28 teams who don't have one of those guys. And if that's the case, then you want to be in the next tier, ideally. If you're one of those 28 teams, you're like, I at least like to be close to that top tier level of quarterback. And what you're left with in tier 2, per Chase Daniel, is Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, and Brock Purdy. I could argue about some guys that maybe don't belong there. Dak Prescott. But in general, I actually think this is pretty accurate, okay? And the way I think about tier 2 as it's currently constructed here, which makes a lot of sense to me, is these are all guys that in the right situation can be elite quarterbacks, and in the wrong situation can really mess it up and have a bad season. Okay? Do I believe that these guys could totally explode and have a terrible season in the wrong situation, under the wrong system, under the wrong leadership, with the wrong weapons, whatever? Absolutely. Do I believe that all of the guys in tier 2 have the capability of being elite? Yes, I do. I also will say that it's likely, even when teams are not doing well, that the players in this tier 2 are playing respectable football. And that's something you don't get from that third tier. By the way, who's not on this list? Just think about it for a second. There are some big names, some guys making big money, like Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, that are not on this list. I agree with that. I think a lot of people, however, would not agree with that. I think Trevor Lawrence is probably the one that people are probably the most angry about. If you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, you're probably pretty upset about that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it as always. But I want to get to this little idea of supporting cast that was mentioned there before. Because Akash had a really appropriate observation based on what we learned from Jed York, from Kyle Shanahan, from John Lynch this week. We've said this before, but the 49ers trying to run it back season after season is a huge reason why the roster is the way it is. Shanahan admitted to it through their draft process comments. Hopefully, that's one of their biggest lessons this offseason, not trying to be a constant run-it-back team. And that's a really, really interesting point of view. For a team that spends top 5 money every single year for several years now, that looked like a team that has been doing that. And the way they've been doing it has been largely successful in the sense that they had an incredible team, but then when the wheels fall off, they really fall off. Bradley Locker from PFF ranked the 49ers draft class, 2024 draft class at number 7. I found that particularly interesting considering the 49ers are not going out there in free agency and making big splash moves. Obviously they did not do that, and the big splash moves are basically gone now. So the 49ers are not doing a big splash move. So how are the 49ers going to address the supporting cast issues in order to find a better system and not do just the run it back methodology that comes in the draft? Here's what Bradley Locker of PFF had to say about the 2024 draft class. San Francisco's 2024 season was a disappointment, but not because of its draft picks. Third-round guard Dominic Puni was a revelation, turning in .33 WAR and an 80.5 PFF overall grade, which ranks 6th among qualifiers at the position. The 49ers' injuries in the secondary were mitigated by the play of Renardo Green, 74.3 PFF coverage grade, and Malik Mustafa, 66.3 PFF run defense grade. Despite playing in only 11 games, first-round pick Ricky Pearsall still managed to accrue a .12 WAR with a 64.1 PFF receiving grade. Most impressive might be that none of the 49ers rookies contributed negative WAR. That's pretty crazy, okay? So it's 16 minutes in the video. I gotta close up shop here. The point that I want to get across in the video today is pretty basic. Brock Purdy is a great quarterback. And there are a lot of great qualities about Brock Purdy that I'm really fired up about. And I believe he can improve. I believe he can get better. I believe that the weapons around him will have to look different, and that change is taking place already. It's before our eyes. This season's going to look different. All of the fun things that we got to see out of Deebo Samuel in previous years, not really last year, are going to be gone. But there's a new culture being created, and they've kept enough pillars around to build around these guys. So I'm excited about how they draft this season. This is going to be, for me, the most anticipated draft. I probably would say this every year, I guess, but this is the most anticipated draft of the Kyle Shanahan era for me. I am really, really excited about how they approach this, because this is the building blocks for the future. This is it. When 2024 draft goes well, all you need to do to be one of those back-to-back draft teams, and if you've just noticed statistically, if you have two really good drafts back-to-back, it tends to pay dividends for many years going forward. So if they can do that, if they can hit 2025 draft, then watch out, because these 49ers might look a little bit younger and they might look a little bit better. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, 22 days, until the 2025 NFL draft. Make sure you subscribe and like this video if you want to be entered into the competition. 24 hours from now, I'm going to post a video with a comment of the winner of the giveaway. $50 gift card to Fanatics. Appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a fantastic evening.